So I posted the topics for today, which was kind of what we wanted to talk about: the essence and preparation to establish and attracting a relationship, the purpose and basics of a happy relationship, the inner blueprint, which is something that I also touched on in that video you saw, um, and then the marriage, fresh look into a happy marriage. And I was thinking about it, it's a topic that just fascinates me, something that I love thinking about. We want to understand where we come from, to understand what moves us, what operates us, what are these components. And we, since the dawn of man, were born into a small society, whether it was a tribe, whether it was a small family, a town, a city, a country, as it evolved. And we depended on this structure to sustain us. And this type of dependence made sure that we have to fit into the structure that we're born in, regardless of what tribe it was, or country, or town, and adapt so that we can be an active member of this society, of this culture. So I was thinking, and I was just like, imagine a little baby, right? And I spoke about it, but I just love it so much. And you imagine this clean slate, and it's born, and it's completely lost. It has no idea where it's at. It has no idea how to behave. It has no idea what's right or wrong. It explores naturally. It has something that drives him to evolve. Nature kind of, we're all born with certain natural gifts, abilities, predispositions that drives us also in that regard. But we rely on our environment, our parents, our educators, our friends and family, to develop a certain worldview in us, a certain approach to life. The basic frame of people, the psychological frame, is very simple. It's pain and pleasure. We want more pleasure and we run away from pain. And everything as wide and deep as our psychological and emotional structure is based on these two principles of pleasure and pain. If it's more pleasurable for me to avoid action and there is no immediate risk, I'm going to choose that. Men often say, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. There's also something to it. And so when we begin to understand that, we begin to see that who we are is essentially an influence of what's around us, of what we were raised as, the type of culture, the type of family we had, the type of friends that we grew up with, the type of schooling that we went through, the education, the values. And that embeds a certain blueprint in us, a blueprint that drives us. That blueprint is basically telling us how to live in a manner that is in line with that blueprint, meaning that I'm gonna basically enjoy life to some degree. Now, what are these details? That depends on each and every individual. And what we find is when we enter a relationship, is that if in the beginning of a relationship, we tend not to really open up, we tend not to really reveal those, the full gamma and spectrum of who we are. We focus on a certain topic of a certain point of us that kind of mashes and molds with the other person, and we go with it. We instinctively know how to be nice. We instinctively know how to be charming. We instinctively know how to work with other people when it's necessary. And then when we enter relationships and we begin to see gradually a certain connection begins to happen. And this connection doesn't necessarily mean it's a pleasurable connection. It just means that we rub up against each other, right? Our two blueprints of how life should be begin to rub up against each other, because there's a lot more points of contact now than there was before. We're literally a part of one life now. Especially now if we have kids, then it's even more of a common area. And all of these things, when they begin to rub up against each other, and my perception of how life should be and her perception of how things should be, they begin to create all of that rubbing up against each other begins to create a lot of friction, a lot of sometimes hostility and animosity, especially if we don't know how to approach these situations properly and how to work with them. That yes, I am a certain blueprint that was influenced by my environment to become who I am. You're also a product of nature and your qualities and how they were shaped by your environment. But now we have to figure out how to live with each other so that we don't kill each other or just say like many do, we're just not cut out, maybe we were wrong when we got married, maybe something just doesn't work out and there's somebody else out there for me. And if statistics is of any say, roughly it's like 42% divorce in the first marriage, and then on the second marriage it's about 60%, and then 73% in the third marriage. Those statistics basically say that it's not getting better. Getting divorced and then looking for somebody else doesn't mean that you're going to find somebody better, because we still didn't learn how to work with each other's blueprint. We still didn't learn how to fix those frictions, how to address these situations, how to work on the common space. And the love method, the whole essence of what I share and what I talk about and what we do is to really not give people certain how-tos, right? Or do this and do that, or bring flowers home, because these are temporarily fixes, to the, like a Band-Aid on a gushing wound. It may do something, but it's not changing us. And when we learn how to focus ourselves on the right line, specifically meaning reestablishing the perception that, listen, we are two different people that have to learn how to become one, how to live together. And yes, I'm faulty, and yes, you're faulty, and yes, there's a lot of things that are wrong, and it's not as perfect as we'd like it to be. But from here, from where we are, we want to start learning how to re-engage, how to work together to basically come out of this mess into a much happier and better life. So far, any questions? Make sense? Okay. What often happens, though, is instinctively when those frictions happen, we learn to associate these blueprints with ourselves. It becomes our identity. And the challenge with it becoming our identity is we are no longer flexible. Like kids are flexible. That's why it's so easy to influence them. They don't have that self-identity yet of who they are. They just are, and they're flexible, and you can influence them, and they can change, and they can adapt, and they can grow, and they love to learn and explore, and they have no problem with it. As adults, we already have a certain image of ourselves and how we are and who we are and certain things that we like and don't like to do. And it becomes a little more challenging. Now, naturally, the response when that friction comes up is to fight, to prove that you're right, to try to explain something to the other person about your position, and the other person doesn't understand you, so they try to explain something to you. And that constant back and forth creates two opposite rather than one whole. It puts us against each other rather in the same boat. And what we're trying to achieve always is to establish the one whole rather than getting into this ego trip of who's more important, or who's right and who's wrong. And here we need practice. We don't need just practice, but we need support also, because there are crucial breaking points when a person just can't help himself, and he needs a group that also practices the same type of approach, and they believe in it and they want to give it their whole, and they support each other. That both couples in the relationship are now also getting the influence of a certain different environment, but towards the right way of approaching relationships. Now, what is this approach? This approach is talking, is getting to know each other, is it can take years, of learning what are the hot buttons for each other, what are the likes and dislikes, what are the dreams that we're looking forward to achieve in our family together, individually. How do we support each other? All of this requires time and effort and repetition and perseverance, and affirmation of the process, because at every there's basically one scheme in the universe, which means in order to break to the next level of our relationship, and that's what nature does, right? It cannot stay still. There's no vacuum in nature. It has to be filled constantly. So there's either a negative, or there is a positive, and the positive requires effort. The negative just happens by itself. It's just a general state where if it doesn't grow, it just begins to degrade. And the same with a relationship. Our relationship is designed in such a way that it constantly awakens those flaws between us that don't allow us to connect on a whole new level. So either we understand that process and begin the process, awaken this process, engage this process on our own, because we understand that if we don't, it's just going to be awakening us through a lot of challenges and issues and fights and everything else. Or we do it together. We do it on a regular basis, where we sit down, we discuss some of the things that happened this week, some of the likes and dislikes, how it could have been, how it should have been, how I would like for you to react and not like for you to react. But rather than just, those are some of the things we talk about, but rather than just focusing on those behaviors, we also want to reinforce the goal of why are we together? What do we want to accomplish together? What are some of the things that uh, in that perfect world, what are some of the things that me and you do towards each other that make it a perfect union, that make it a perfect connection between us, a perfect marriage? And every time when we reinforce them, we attract that future state of perfection as we see it at the moment. And it can evolve from day to day, from hour to hour, that level of understanding of what this ideal is. But as it evolves, we also evolve. So we change together, and this change happens much more harmonically and naturally, and in a good way, in a fun way, because then it becomes much more of a game than a battle, than a war. So this process becomes a part of our lives, and then we are naturally evolving along with it through the tough times and the good times. This process becomes one with us. So what are your thoughts so far?
Very cool.
Awesome.
Is good. I mean, that's good knowledge you're putting out there. And I mean, for me, it's kind of late because relationship is done, but it's something that I can take to the next relationship.
Perfect. So now we're all single, and we want to ideally be in a relationship. We recognize that being in a relationship is good, that being in a relationship is a challenge that we want to undertake, that being in a relationship is something that essentially is fulfilling us individually, but also does a much greater good to our families as well. and to the people around us, because when in a relationship we have a chance of being truly happy, of being tapping into something that is much more fulfilling than what we have now. It gives us a certain inner connection, inner revelation. It's something that it's very, very difficult to get with anybody else. We can have friends, but even with friends, we're not close enough where those frictions allow us to build something so common where we have to constantly be growing and overcoming together, and rising into the challenge that is um, that challenges our connection. So what are some of your thoughts? How do we get into a relationship? What's missing? Maybe let's do a quick round on that.
Well, I think like you was introduced a goal, right? And so when you're looking for a relationship, you have to understand compatibility. And what do you base that off of? Physical, sure, okay, yeah, but that doesn't go very far. It's important, but it doesn't go. So the question is like, well, what? Okay, so there's all these women, and for women, there's all these men, and how do you know who goes together, right? And maybe you don't 100%, but at least if you all of a sudden start to find this goal that you're talking about, right? You can at least ask, well, what's your goal? And it's not like normally that just means from what I'm is like, what's your goal? Oh, I want to get a job. I want to have a kid. Like, no, 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 no. What's our goal, right? Is what we're talking about now. Like, if we continue this, what's our goal? Like, you need to know that, and you need to see if it's going to work together. So that's very cool for me, because they've taken like a lot. It's very important. I'll let someone else talk now. How about Ben?
Yeah, I like what you said about compatibility. That that's the trick, is to find somebody who's got a similar goal to what your goal is, and or to what my goal is, so that we have some work to do together, to try to reach that goal. And what was I going to say about that? That I don't know. I forgot. um, yeah, so it's just like creating those opportunities, I guess, to do that. And I guess I was going to share that my goal is no longer to, I mean, for quite a while, it's not been to find material, satisfaction. It's more that peak of the pyramid, peak of the triangle kind of experience that I'm shooting for. And, I realize that doesn't happen without some effort and work. You don't just jump up there someday. But to find somebody, like, where do you find the people, the woman who is going to have that as her interest as well? I guess that's the question I'm sitting with. And I think from past sessions, it is like a matter of being a magnet, an attractive magnet, not a repelling magnet. So I'm just kind of sitting with how to be that magnet, to create that energy, or that I don't know, attracting force to that we can mutually fill each other's empty spaces, kind of a thing. I don't know. I'm kind of rambling here.
Ozzy? Ozzy, can you speak?
Here we go. I was on mute the whole time. All right, here we go. The way I see it, and the way I've been reading, is for me to become a magnet, I got to work on myself. I got to work on the flaws that I realized I made during the relationship that I had with the last partner. I got to love myself. I got to be happy with myself because nobody's going to make me happy the way I made myself happy. So that's one way to start attracting the opposite sex. The other thing is, I make a mental list of the things that I desire in my couple, what I'm looking for. If I'm looking, what kind of woman I'm looking for, in other words, certain things that I require, not require, but I'm asking the universe for. And the other thing is, this is how you start working and you get to know the person and you realize the points that what points were you willing to sacrifice or the points you're not willing to sacrifice. Then you start working on your comments. What are you looking for? What is your future? Are you planning to do? What are you planning to do? I mean, what is it? Why would you like to be with me? What brings you to me that you think that I have that we can acquire, and what you bring to me that I'm looking for that we can acquire so we can grow as a couple. That's the way right now that I'm working on fashioning for my next to be. So, I mean, I know there's a lot of information, but I guess with time I'll clarify a little bit more and more and more to more detail to make it more understandable because I love being in a relationship. I always have, you know. But at this stage, I can't be too, I'm not saying picky, but I just can't take whatever comes along. So I'm looking for a more selected, because the last relationship, I actually asked for the qualities that I got. But there was little details that I didn't write down or I didn't realize that there were going to be a problem later on in the relationship because I let it go. Now I realize those were the most important things in the relationship that I should have never let it pass by. So who else is on the call? I don't even know. It's only us four?
Yeah. Yep. Only us. So that's good, man. Thank you. Thank you guys for sharing. In addition to, basically, I mean, you said everything correctly. I mean, you got everything written down. You kind of are looking for this goal. Um, at the same time, I have to be able to feel myself with somebody else. And that in itself can be a very uh, scary thing. It can be some inner rejections to the idea. So working working on that with daily, just imagining yourself or thinking about it, asking yourself how you would feel with another person, how would you act, what would your life look like. You are training, you're basically are awakening yourself the emotions of already being with somebody. So that brings us closer to already having it, also to attracting that partner. um, the other thing that's important to kind of remember is we're still looking for not a business partner, right, to help us achieve our dreams. We're not looking for somebody who's just going to do their share and then we're going to do our share, and then it's a much closer union that will take years to develop, and it's perfectly fine and it's cool and it's amazing. What we're looking for in this initial stage is somebody who I enjoy making happy. And that can be tough because what I'm discovering in my relationship is that my wife and I have sometimes different languages of communication. Not just words, right? But it's much more than that. Um, when I do something that requires effort and I do it for her, and I expect a certain response, she's a lot more critically thinking. So she immediately begins to look at the practical things. And I'm like, but hold on. Like you didn't acknowledge the fact that everything you've been asking me for, which is to take that step and to do that research, for example, and to reach out to people and to, start envisioning and to start, I've done. Now you're ignoring everything I've done and you're jumping to the next step. How do you expect I'm going to have any motivation to actually begin to fulfill that next step if I haven't, we got to work for each other. And so these moments are teachable moments for us because now she understands better how to work with me, and I understand a little better that I don't respond emotionally to every time I just don't get what I want, like a little baby. And that interaction helps us. It's always helpful that we have similar backgrounds because that's a huge thing. I mean, regardless of how we look at it, our upbringing is our upbringing, and if we can get somebody from a similar background, that's it eliminates like 90% of the challenges in a marriage because you already have a certain common denominator that connects between you, and then everything else is just workable moments. But how do I know that it's somebody who makes me happy? I mean, that I enjoy making happy, not that they make me happy. So somebody who you enjoy making happy is somebody who, when you do something for her, her joy makes you happy. Like it's that simple. She knows how to communicate. She knows how to say thank you. She knows how to, it's these little things that will give you the motivation in the future. Sorry, guys, 1 second. Sorry. Um, where was I? Remind me.
Motivation in the future, like she keeps one thing after the other without the compliment.
Every time you make her happy, every time you make her smile, and you're inside, you're like, damn, I did that for her. That's part of actually loving that person to a point that, okay, I know she's happy, and I know I'm getting gratitude, not in the physical, but in the emotions coming towards me, and that rejoice you, it like elevates you to a point that, like, yeah, see,
Fuel.
I am,
Yes.
I am, I am. I feel like the word, I am the God.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. 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 Exactly that. This is because otherwise, quiet. Because otherwise, what happens is just the kids are swarming me. Otherwise, what happens is
This is what a father goes through every time your kids are around, and they're all of a sudden they want the attention of your of the dad, because they're wondering, what is dad doing? Why is he over there? How come we can't hang with him? How come we can't be in the same conversation?
That's funny.
and it doesn't help that the wife is away, so that's like
They're like, we
um
want to do something. Let's go bug dad.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. My room is their favorite room. Um, but yeah, because our self-esteem depends on whether we can actually make somebody else happy. If our self-esteem is high, if we feel like we can accomplish things, like we actually have somebody who believes in us, right? Then we can turn over mountains. I mean, we can do literally anything for that person. But if somebody is doubting our abilities to do something, or, you know, gives us feedback that is questionable, then we immediately turn into little boys like we used to with our mommies. And we just feel small and ineffective. And that's a killer, number one killer in a relationship. It's not the money, it's not, you know, it's not the challenges, it's not the toughness. It's literally how does a woman treat her man that determines the quality of their relationships. And so
If
what,
you
go ahead.
if it doesn't go the way you expected, it feels like you getting torn. Like there's something you're like, well, it's something because you yourself you build this expectation that was going to come your way, and all of a sudden you receive a negative thing. It's like feeling like an arrow going right through you, and you're like, and then you're like, then you start wondering yourself, why am I doing all this stuff if it's going to be like this? She's not appreciating it or not receiving it the way I thought she was going to receive it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Which is why it's so crucial for us to be aware of this in the courting process. You want to call it dating, you want to call it whatever you want, the getting to know the other person. How do they react and how do they respond? And it can be growing moments. I mean, it doesn't have to be like a killer, right? That if she doesn't respond a certain way, then that's it, she's not the right one. You can see how what is the dynamic between your interaction. And that is the single crucial point for us to pay attention to. For women it's different. For women, um, because there is a thing of self-esteem for both men and women, and women's self-esteem will actually, so this is interesting. For men, low self-esteem comes out in the form of inaction, meaning my low self-esteem just causes me to do nothing, because I'd rather do nothing than, you know, do something and then feel shittier about that. So if I do nothing, it's safe. For women, it's the other way around. Low self-esteem means I want to do everything for others because that's how I believe I buy their love, buy their appreciation. That's what makes me feel good about myself. And it may seem appealing in the beginning, which is why women are so angry with men these days, because it's like, well, I'm doing all of these things for him. But what they're doing is they're attracting the wrong guy who actually is the opposite, also low self-esteem guy, who says, shit, I'm the king, man. She's doing all of these things for me. I must be doing something right by doing nothing. And she's in turn expecting the feminine approach, which is I scratch your back and you scratch my back. And in our dynamic, in our relationship, it doesn't work like that. The woman is like the mood setter of the home. She determines the general atmosphere, the vibe of the house. You know, how do the members feel? Like everything depends on how she feels. So her number one priority is not to make others feel good, but to make herself feel good. So if she needs to take a vacation, if she needs to, a day at the spa, if she needs to do whatever she needs to do to make herself feel good, whatever she needs from her man, her she's like a vibration radiator that if she's negative at the core, that's what she vibrates out, which is why you know, everybody around her is going to suffer. If a woman is unhappy, everybody around her will suffer. For if for a man it's different. For a man, for us to really feel good, to really feel fulfilled, is by getting appreciation from others for something that we've done. So to gain higher self-esteem, we have to really think of others, do for others, make sure that others are taken care of, that we build those relationships around us in a way that are beneficial for other people, because then they will appreciate us for what they do, for what we do, and we build our self-esteem that way. Which is why a relationship with women is very crucial, because we're instinctively are taught by women the feminine blueprint, which is, you know, I do for you and you enjoy, right? This is how mommy taught us. When you receive from me, I feel so good. But we're not boys anymore. We can go by the same blueprint. We can just sit there and accept from women and say, well, you're giving to me, so that means you're happy, right? Otherwise, why would you give to me? So our psychology switches and we begin to look, how can I add to her life? How can I make her feel more comfortable? How can I make her happier? It could be a gift, it could be doing something around the house, it could be just having a conversation, asking her certain questions. What would you like? How are you feeling? Stuff like that. And then when she is in this ideal state of joy and happiness, and she's actually content with your relationship to her and your care for her, then the magic happens. Then things really begin to fly. And then the trick is not to fall into that intoxicating feeling of joy and happiness and fulfillment, but together begin to build the next degree, right? The next deficiency. What else are we feeling? What else are we doing? How can we, because eventually a woman isn't just content with your attitude towards her. Once everything's okay in the home, she wants you to continue this force of giving, this force of improving other people's lives outwards, because then she can take pride for what you do. She takes pride for what you do, right? She's not doing jack, but she takes pride of it. That's my man. She's a part of us. The woman is associating herself with us, and that cycle continues to feed us. The expression, though, and this is crucial, the expression is through the men.
Yeah, Alex, on that note, that you're just saying that she wants you to do something else, man, she'll book jobs for you to do for families or friends so you can take care of them. They're like, hey, if I can be like, Ozzy, can so and so needs a fence repair. You think you could go over there, since you got the tools, maybe you can fix that for her? And I'm like, sure. But that what made her happy, in a sense, is like, my man is a handyman. I trust him with anybody. I'm like, damn, man, I wasn't getting paid. So yeah,
Amazing.
that, you see, that part I understand when you were talking about that. It just, I didn't see it as that, but now I'm understanding more and more. Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, it's a fascinating dynamics. Guys, any questions so far?
Yeah, this is it's amazing, man. Absolutely amazing. I had a question, but it's gone now. I'll see if I can think about it.
Um, it's really interesting to me that in low self-esteem, the man is inactive and the woman is active. And in high self-esteem, it's the opposite, right? The man is doing all the work and the woman is just kicking back and appreciating. That's pretty interesting.
Okay, so I do have a comment and a question kind of embedded in it. And I'm not sure if this is where you want to take it, to be honest, but I am noticing this thing that you said about if women are unhappy, everyone's going to suffer. Okay. So I see this in businesses where they've taken a woman and they've piled everything on top of her because she just keeps wanting to do, although she's at max capacity, right? Like any normal human being. And what's happening is really weird. Like, yeah, like the whole environment is essentially suffering the minute she gets frustrated. And she's low level. And it goes all the way up. And like weird things happen. Like people start phoning other people that aren't even involved in certain things. Like men just start going crazy. And I've seen this now a lot. And it's always centered around these women that are essentially just being overloaded because they just accept everything. And now that plays into it too, because they're like, yeah, give me more. Yeah, give me more. It's like, aren't you over like worked? Just give me more. And it's like, this is not good.
Well, this is what feminism gave us. Feminism told us that women can be equal to men. Now, I don't have a problem with their claims. Everybody's free to do whatever they want. But the challenge is when you put a woman in a place where she's equal to a man, you are essentially, you're not elevating her. You're taking her a step down. And in that taking her a step down, she's now trying to prove herself worthy. Whereas a woman in her nature is worthy of love and praise, not because she's done something. And that goes all the way to kindergarten, school, and everything else that we go through in our society where, you're being rewarded for good grades, for good behavior. You're appreciated not for who you are, but for what you can give to other people. You're being scolded for what you don't do. So we're taught early on that our actions are, for girls anyway, this is how they perceive it, that they're in themselves aren't worthy, only for what they can do for somebody else. And that ties into poor relationship education that doesn't exist, but only some fake sex education that is like, how to have fake sex. And our whole culture is surrounded around the degradation of the sacredness of a woman and the degradation of the divinity of a man. And then we wonder, why are we having problems in our society? It's like, this is what we've done for each other. We've corrupted. Thank you so much. We've corrupted our drinking water. This is the water that feeds us, that we nourish from our environment. Like we spoke earlier, this is what feeds our blueprint. This is why we have so many sexual perversions, and we have so many just people who, because they suppress certain, I don't even know how to say it, malfunctions, let's say, certain perverse desires, right? Or certain, whatever that may be, because they're not realized in their essence as a man or a woman, it doesn't go away. You just learn how to do it behind closed doors. So everything is like evolving around this aspect of relationship and a man and a woman, and how do we interact with each other, and how do we raise men, and how do we raise women, um, and how do we teach them to interact with each other so that they actually understand that they aren't like the opposite sex. The way they communicate isn't like the opposite sex. Which is why I'm so passionate about this topic. And it's like so crucial and so rich, and it's got so many different flavors in it, because as many as different as people are, there's just as different flavors you're gonna have. But it's a good question. And women in the workplace are suffering because it's not natural for them to be in those positions. Like, you can be upset with what I'm saying, especially if you're a woman watching this, and you can say, well, you're just being sexist and xenophobic and whatever other verbs they've created out there, because you don't appreciate women. I love women. I appreciate women. I think women are the crucial component of our society, of a family. But you're taking away the woman and you're putting her to work, essentially, to work for somebody else, by the way. She has a different husband now. She has a different owner, so to speak. Why? Because she doesn't trust her husband. She has to have her own security because she doesn't know how to create security within her family. So it all manifests in all of those different movements and just things. It's good. Anything else?
So in your talk on Sunday, you talked to, and you had mentioned blueprints before, but you talked about how, and you touched on it earlier in this session, how we are not our blueprints and that we need to rise above our blueprints. So I was curious about learning more about that, if, yeah, it's not about fixing the blueprint, but it's about, like only acknowledging that we have them and then rising above them. So how do you do that? I don't know how to do that.
That's good. How do you do it? Well, so first of all, what is a blueprint, right? A blueprint, like there was the psychological study they did on the boy after they tried it with animals. Skinner, I believe, B.F. Skinner, who did it with the animals and the dogs, and basically creating a stimuli where the bell rang, they started salivating because the stimuli created an expectation of food. What they did the same thing with a similar thing with a little boy, right? The little Albert experiment, where they took a little boy and they introduced a white rat to it, and he just, there was no fear. It's just an animal, curiosity. Then they took away the rat and they made a loud noise. And so he was scared of the loud noise and it created a sense of fear in him. And then they combined the two. So they put a rat and they put a loud noise. And then they did it enough so that he associated the rat with fear. So then when they just presented the rat, he was reacting with fear. He wasn't, and then more than that, they put him on Santa's lap and he started crying. So now he was associating the fear to white fluffy stuff because Santa had a white beard. And this conditioning we receive from literally everything around us as we grow up. It influences on all of these different levels, on all of these different depths to our core, that the overwhelming majority, I can't give you a percentage, but if I could, it was probably, in the 95, 99%, it's unconscious. Like, we don't understand what motivates us. We don't understand what drives us. We don't understand why we make certain decisions the way we do. But it all stems from this blueprint that we essentially achieved that tells us that this is danger and this is pleasure, and this is pain and this is pleasure, and you want to run away from this and you want to go towards that. But we got it from our society. We don't even know if it's real fear or if it's imaginary, like with Albert, you know, because of a certain association they did for him. Um, the question is, how do you rise above it instead of trying to tinker with a faulty, with a dirty glass, right? If I'm looking through dirty glasses and I'm trying to clean another dirty glass, my glasses are dirty. So everything is dirty. Everything I look at is dirty. Even myself. I can't understand my own blueprint. I don't have the correct vision. And here the only answer is if we correct the very thing that corrupted us, which is society. And if we can build people, if we can put together even a small group of people who go according to this rule that this is what we want, is to create better relationships for each other, you know, like you do in a family, basically. And we can, you know, we study together like we do here once a week. Maybe once we have enough content and interest, that can be a much more frequent type of interaction. Um, when you have a family that you can also practice these things in, that all puts you at a point where you have to interact with others. And so when you interact with others, you begin to pay attention to your reaction to them. And so if the value that we're preaching here and we're practicing here is how to benefit other people, because we understand that through benefiting others, I actually grow as a man. I boost my self-esteem and I build myself up in order to become then even more influential, more beneficial to others, more correct and more right. The cycle then continues. And then I actually begin to enjoy the process. I enjoy finding these little bumps in the road, right? This little, oh, that just tweaked me. Like something this guy said or something that guy did, you know, it's an opportunity to try to overcome it. It's an opportunity to see how I can invest in this relationship even more. No. Um, and then our blueprint begins to change. Then we're not oriented towards just our own perception as it was flawed, but it expands our level of perceptions, because then we begin to rely on others for feedback. You know, and then, you know, because it's a process, it's a very in-depth process, and you have a lot of ups and downs, and this is where you need the support of a community that also is taking these steps. And then you're creating dynamics and waves that are influencing much and reaching out much farther than you can even imagine. Like you're suddenly seeing that you're giving courage to other people to rise up. You're giving strength to other people to, you know, ask the right questions and search. Sorry, and search out for answers. Um, but we can't do anything on our own, because that blueprint, especially as we grew older, it it basically dominates all of our being. It dominates all of our decision-making processes. It is in control of everything we do and everything we say. Um, it's like locked. And the only thing that makes it malleable is other people.
Did you have, did you get feedback or interest from people after your talk on Sunday? Were there people who wanted to explore further?
No, because I don't know what type of audience they had, to be honest with you. I did have some interesting question. Clearly, there was a lady in there that wasn't very happy with the idea that you need to be in a relationship in order to, change your blueprint. So, if you remember, I mentioned religions, right? That religions were kind of that society for many people, and sports was another. And so she asked two questions, and the last one was like, "Well, how is it different than you making religion out of a marriage?" I was like, so because what you're saying essentially is only in that close of a relationship can you begin to change your blueprint. Which, if you think about it, who else are you really that close to that you would actually consider changing for or doing
Yeah,
anything else for?
yeah, I did watch it, but I didn't see those questions. I thought they said, like, I watched the thing and they said that we
They,
don't have time for questions.
yeah, they came in through text.
Oh, I see.
They came in through text. So I think we're at the hour. Um, let's maybe think if we have any other questions or general feedback. What do you guys think?
I made notes. I'm just gonna go and think about this. There's a lot here, man. I'm telling you, there's a lot here. My brain is it's active. It's not mush. It's active. It's amazing.
So
Wait,
I mean, I keep showing up week after week, just wanting to continue this conversation and see it expand. So thank you for offering this. I've been part of like the Mankind Project. I did their workshops and attended their groups for a while, and it was okay. But yeah, people just a lot of times they just want to dwell on their problems and not really looking for how to get beyond it, or they're not able to get beyond it. So that's kind of what interests me. And but yeah, I mean, it'd be nice. I don't know. I would ideally like to be bringing some on the ground issues from my relationship into this conversation, and I don't really have a relationship at this point. So, but I'll keep showing up. You know.
Well,
just, oh,
the
Ozzy.
way, yeah, I mean, today, because he touched on things that actually happened in my past relationship, but I had no knowledge. I had no, what they're saying, there was nothing for me to actually go and like, oh, okay, she's acting like that because of this. So now it's like, I understand more of what is required from me in a relationship than I knew about when I was in the relationship. So, so to me, it's like, damn, Alex, man, where were you like 4 years, 8 years in between? This knowledge, I needed this knowledge way back then. But right now, I'm soaking everything in. I feel like a sponge. It's like all the information, and from the past meetings we had, I observed that and I use it because I still have a kind of relationship with my ex, and when the conversation comes up, I throw everything that I learned, and I get that look like, like what? Huh? I'm waiting for her to what, but I did go to her and I told her, I said, look, I am learning about relationship because now I have a group of men that I can talk to. They're either in my same position or they're past this position and they're way beyond that position. And some are still married that they're dealing with the day-to-day about the couples, how to get better as a couple. So to me, I didn't have this before. To me now it's like having a book, a knowledge, a center, something that I can go through, bring up and say, man, I'm having this problem. What do you think? Or why is this the reaction we're getting from a partner, even though I'm thinking everything is cool. But here we are.
Yeah, I
Oh,
agree.
all I know is like next person in my life, she's gonna be content, really content. I'll be able to sit down with her. I say, hey, what's wrong, babe? Are you feeling? Are you okay? You want me to do something for you because you're everywhere. And my understanding is when you're trying to help everybody, you're not happy with yourself. So come on, talk to me. Bring it up. Let's go. Let's work on this.
I agree. And I just want to say, like, I don't, like, it's good to hear your voice, Ozzy. Haven't heard you for a while. And I think that for me, like, having these guys here, it's inspiration, right? Like, I don't have this
Yeah.
on my own. When I walk away, it's there, but it's not as strong as when these guys are here, right? I don't care. It doesn't matter if they're married or what's going on. It doesn't matter because we all want a good relationship. And I'm listening to Alex, and it's like he's fully married, and he's like, I mean, he's just getting started too, right? It sounds like, that's what I said I talked to one woman, and I told her about the pyramid, right? And I mean, come on, man. She just almost fell over. Like, it's like you're finally got an arsenal, right? Like, Ozzy's right. Like, I thought exactly the same thing. Like, where were you, a couple years ago, right? Like, what the heck, man? I feel like I'm getting armed up and suited up, and we've got a battle plan, and I've got there's a support system behind me, and it's like, and there's a bunch of older guys in the back egging me on with a spear, right? It's like, don't worry, once they get through you, they gotta deal with us, right? And it's all good, man. It's amazing.
And the conversation is when you start a conversation with the person, you're not the way you present yourself is like it's not longer, oh, can I get your number? Or things that just to make them laugh so they can no, so they can actually look at you and say, no, my awareness and how much I'm working to myself, that's a magnet right there and then. That's what Ben needs to understand. It's like it's not what you is you, your reflection inside of you. That's what comes out. You don't need nothing else. You need to work on yourself. You need to love yourself. You need to be happy with yourself, no matter what situation you're in. And that's the magnet, guys. And I see it every day. Every time I go somewhere just for it, I know I get a lot of attention, you know. But it's just it's just one of the things I like, hey, I'm working on my list. I'm looking at you, but no, I don't think you're part of my list.
One more thing that if you want to be in a relationship, what's gonna catapult you there is being being the guy who not just nice to other women, but being like the source of joy in a way, somebody who can help them, but genuinely, not in like a more than a friend's way, but when you do that, when you actually are investing in other females, regardless of what age or what they need, their vibes will instantly impact you, and you will instantly become more attractive to other women as well. So instead of just looking for that one, according to that, list or whatever, if you just genuinely offer yourself to others, those vibes will immediately begin to impact you as well. And then the right woman will also start coming closer.
Yep.
Yep, I agree with that because they all see that. They're like, hold up, what's up with this man? How come he's just doing and not looking for something?
Yeah, and they have a network between them, right? Like they'll so yeah, it's true. I've never heard it phrased that way, but it's true. And it really makes it clear. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. It's interesting you said a network, and I immediately thought of like, the insect world where the insects have a queen, and the queen, just through her vibes, organizes the entire colony. So it's definitely true. Awesome, guys. Well, I really appreciate you coming. I'll tons of material that we went through. I'll post the video, and I'll also try to cut some clips from this meeting.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Alex.
Thanks. See you next week.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. You guys have a nice weekend.
You too, Ozzy.
Hey, I'm looking forward to it. I ain't doing jack, but I'm looking forward to it.
Watch out for those women.
Hey, man. This Saturday, I'm helping my brother DJ I think it's some kind of company meeting or something like that, or company function. So I'm holding up a sign saying designated dancer if you're looking for one. All right, guys, enjoy.
Nice.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you for sharing your knowledge.
You can give us a report next week, Ozzy.
Yeah, report.